Gillian Million is the UK's leading bespoke wedding accessories designer. She started her business 12 years ago from a room in her house, and since then has designed and created wedding accessories for a number of celebrities. She's regularly featured in fashion and celebrity magazines with her incredible collection of hairpieces, brooches, tiaras, veils, jewellery and stoles. The brand and business has grown from strength to strength with clients from all over the world. We joined Gillian in her gorgeous shop in Teddington, London, to find out how it all began, learn about her journey to success and how she manages to balance her thriving business with 2 growing boys.
I think the lovely thing, if I can say so, about my business, or the way that my business came about, is it's evolved. I didn't start out thinking, right, I'm going to be the leading accessory designer in the wedding industry. I've always had a passion and a belief that no matter what I do, I believe I can do it better than anyone else in a nice way, only because I'm passionate and I want people to be completely delighted. You know, if you type into Google tiaras, you're going to get 27,000 responses. So, you know, I am bespoke, I am individual, and I'm not going to be found necessarily just amongst the 27,000, but I very much go on reputation, and that is because every single person that I see invariably buys from me, because why wouldn't they? Because we can do anything. And because in the shop it hopefully shows people that we don't sort of compromise on design or quality of products. We really go all out to make sure that our customers are 100% happy. And whatever it is they want, we will do. And we don't charge any extra for our bespoke service. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they pay a price that we're all happy and we agree upon, because I like to stay within people's budget. So again, people like that. It's not set fees and set prices. It's making sure we're all happy to start with, and then the piece that they walk away with will be within that price and be perfect for them. So it has evolved, and I realise that that is something that people have always been happy about and excited about. You know, people don't like to buy online for weddings because they like to touch and feel.
Absolutely.
They might think they do because it's so much cheaper, or it might be this or it might be that, but then of course they receive something which they haven't touched and felt and tried on, more importantly, and it's not right, and they're disappointed, and they bring it in going, I'm sorry, I thought I could cut corners, but actually you really do, as the old cliche says, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that idea that somebody can come to you and say, this is my dress, this is what I look like, this is the atmosphere and the feeling that I want to create with my wedding. Help me. And they can basically put themselves in your hand and you can create exactly what they want.
Absolutely. Well, you know, dresses, well, you obviously got married recently as well. I mean, you go into a shop thinking you know what you want, and then hopefully you're in the hands of the experts and they spend a bit of time with you. It just takes literally, in my case, probably 15 minutes of asking the right questions. And then you realise actually what you think you might like is not going to be right for you as a person. Well, it's the same with jewellery as well. But even if you're a jewellery person or not a jewellery person, we don't wear things in our hair every day. And we certainly don't get married every day, hopefully. So you really do, if you're open to advice from anybody in life generally, it's always worth listening, because hopefully people then say, oh goodness, you know what, I would never have picked that up. I would never have thought about that. But actually, I absolutely love it. And seeing their face, you know, you feel like you've done your job when somebody walks away going, I'm just so excited. This has been the best part of my, you know, wedding planning. And that's what it should be, not about me and my accessories, but about having an experience with somebody that makes people feel that they're in the right place, that they're being looked after, and the person that they're speaking to is really passionate and really feels that they want to make sure that, you know, that person is 100% delighted. Otherwise they don't pay a penny. So I think this whole customer service thing, whatever your product is, whatever your job is, looking after people and inspiring them with confidence is the most important thing you can offer.
And how rewarding for you to be able to do this every day.
I know, we're having 2 boys, you see this is my girly thing. So although I love it, forgetting what I do as far as walking into my shop every day is lovely, it does, and everybody of course comes in who all have amazing jobs that I'm completely sort of, you know, my eyes are open going, oh my gosh, you're a vet or you're a doctor or you do incredible things every day. They go all gooey and sort of tap into their girly side and go, I can't believe you do this every day. So everyone loves everyone and everyone's happy and appreciates what everyone else is doing. So I do realise that, you know, being in a girly heaven, even people who don't think they're particularly girly, everyone is underneath it, or it's just finding it. You know, I was a dental surgeon the other day, and she's actually quite sort of, you know, formidable. But when I phoned her up, I had to go through various sort of people in order to get to her. And then eventually, it was whatever her name was, I got through to her and she was quite officious on the phone. I said, well, I'm so sorry to trouble you. I hope this is a good moment. It's Gillian Million here, just to let you know your accessories are ready. Well, she almost squealed with delight and suddenly just giggled, and suddenly all the barriers had melted and all she wanted was to get to me as quickly as possible to pick up her jewellery. So it was really lovely. So it was tapping into that girly side. So yes, it is a joy to come into work every day.
How did you get to this position? Tell me about the journey from creating this beautiful piece for your own wedding to now having this amazing, you know, sparkly heaven here in Teddington, and amazing online business as well, which I know that you have. Tell me about that journey. How did you do it?
Well, I started, obviously, as I said, by making something for my own wedding. I obviously enjoyed it thoroughly. And then, of course, you know, when you get compliments from people, it feeds your confidence. And you just feel, oh, hang on a minute, maybe I do quite like this. And I always say to people, actually, when they get married, they suddenly find a path. You know, we do spend a lot of our lives finding our husbands, if we admit it or not. When we've got our husbands, we then think, now, what do we feel now we're ready to do? What do we want to do with our lives? Putting aside families, of course, which tends to happen anyway. But it does give you a clearer thought process. So anyway, after obviously my wedding, I did enjoy it so much, the whole creative aspect of not only my headdress, but I did all sorts of other aspects of the wedding, which I really enjoyed. And I decided I wanted to do more of it. So being the type of person that I am, which is always setting the goal and then working to it, rather than working to it and possibly never getting to the goal, I phoned up Liberty, and it was in the days when you could get through to the person that you wanted to get through to, which of course you can't so easily now, so I realised that was on my side. And I managed to get through to the buyer, and she said to me, well, you know, would you mind sending me some images of your collection, of which I only had 6 pieces? And I said, well, I really think it's important that you do see them and, you know, touch and feel something and you know, really sort of appreciate it on first-hand basis, so I really think it would be great if I could put an appointment in the diary. Well, this was in the March, and I'll never forget, we put a date in the diary on the 9th of November, by which time I thought, right, I better make a few things. So anyway, I did, because I had that date in the diary, and she took my whole collection, which was so exciting. And I think it was because I had a goal to work towards. So setting goals, I think, in my world is really important.
And also giving yourself enough time.
Giving enough time. I mean, it was all perfect timing. It was all perfect timing.
It might have been a little bit more
exactly.
difficult.
Although, no doubt, you always achieve what you want to, so long as it's within the realms of even remote possibility. Yeah. So that was obviously very comfortable. So anyway, so that happened for me. A very good friend of mine happened to be having I don't know, a glass of wine with the editor of the Saturday Telegraph and the editor of the Saturday Telegraph, who she lived with, as in friends. She was saying, oh gosh, I really do need a feature. And Sasha said, oh goodness, why don't you write about my friend who's setting up? Well, so then, would you believe it? Obviously something was on my side, although I do believe you create your own destiny. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that it was complete luck, but you sort of listen out for opportunity. And before I knew it, I had somebody arriving at my house from the Saturday Telegraph who photographed my whole collection and did an interview with me. And then I had a half a page in the indulgence section. Well, it would be great to have it now, to be honest, because I've now got the whole collection. Then I literally had just a few pieces, but it was wonderful nevertheless. And of course it got me almost international recognition instantly, because people came and saw me from all over when I really wasn't prepared. But again, you sort of, you know, you just maximise on the opportunity. So anyway, all of that made me realise that I've got something that I really want to share with everyone. And so I set up one of our bedrooms in our house was then suddenly a little studio, just a very tiny studio. And I think it was the momentum of the enthusiasm of others and the creative designs, because I mean, at the end of the day, I do design for people, but at the end, I listen to people. So if they tell me what they think they want, then I would endeavour to try and create their vision. And if it wasn't right immediately, then it would be right, you know, eventually. And that's what happened, and that's why today I've got a collection, because I never sell any one thing. So I've always got something. For instance, I'll have an example of something I created 16 years ago. So there's always the evolving fashions that have gone by, but I still have them. I don't sort of only have today's trend. I'll always have something that maybe was popular, sort of, you know, because everything, as you know, goes round, comes round. Yeah. And it's very much about having all the originals to be inspired by. So that's how we've got to where we are now.
And I love that you have a really, really strong ethos behind your brand, this ethos that everybody is an individual, that anything is possible. And I love how you manage to implement that with this personal service that you give every single person that comes in to your store, into your shop. And was that something that was very important from the outset? That was something that you had these beautiful pieces, people, I assume, came to your home and had a look at them, and you had maybe 6 pieces. Did you sell those, or did people say, oh, I like this, but I'd rather it if it had some red in it? Or how did that process work?
Well, I think it's keeping communication open in anything you sell. And the beauty, as we've touched on earlier, is that I can make whatever they want. So it's not as if I'm reliant on suppliers. So I instantly know whether it's possible. And as I said, I'd like to think that anything, and of course we all know anything is possible. So I never sell my prototypes, so I never sell my originals. So even if they fall in love with that one, then we will make it exactly as. So, but I still like people to feel that they have their own individual piece. So in other words, we always colour the band in the colour of their hair. We always look at where your parting is. We always look at, you know, you as a person and the colour of your skin. I mean, literally, there's so many things that make something look natural and inherited rather than wiry and uncomfortable and plonked. So it's very important, even on the tiniest little tweaks, to open communication with people. And the more you ask people questions, the more they feel that you're really finding and creating something that, you know, is a mutual discussion, and we've come to it together. And it's all about value for money then, isn't it? I mean, because then they feel that no one else will have it. You know, it's all very individual to them. So I think that's really important. So the ethos of my brand really is to say that, you know, I'm a bespoke designer. I really do listen to what people have to say and what they want, and it doesn't cost any more. It's just about getting it absolutely right.
Beautiful. And what are your plans for the brand going forwards?
Well, going forward, I mean, we are very much now dealing with a lot of international clients as well as London. I started in Teddington because obviously I live in Teddington, which is obviously, you know, just outside of Richmond, Kingston, which has suited me with my family. And obviously, ultimately, you know, the boys have been, of course, been small and growing up rapidly. And now I think I'm ready we're looking now at opening a shop in central London.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so we were about to sign on the dotted line last year, and due to my husband's travelling plans, we just put it on hold to make sure that he was happy 100%. And at the end of the day, we're doing very well here in London, in Teddington. But I just feel the next step is definitely to open up our flagship store in London, and that's what we hope to have done within the next 18 months.
That's lovely. And how do you know when something's right for you? You just said, I feel that the next step is to do this. How do you know that? Is it instinct? Is it, you know, are you very rational and you look at the pros and cons of a situation? How do you know when something's right for you to do for your brand?
I suppose I'm not somebody who's always been hungry to have my own business. So everything has happened organically. And I think, you know, every day is different in everybody's lives. I mean, what I'm doing today could be very different next week. Hence, I was about to sign on a shop and something changed within our family life positively for my husband, and therefore I decided to take a step back. Because I think it's a balance. You know, I want to make sure the boys are happy. I want to make sure Brett's happy. I want to make sure that I'm ready. And to be honest, little tiny decisions that you try to run too quickly with and maybe be too selfish with, and therefore ignore what's going on in your family. For me, anyway, I think it's an equilibrium, and making sure I only like to move forward if I feel that lots of different areas within my life are ready. And it's not obvious. You just have to sort of feel how an inner contentment, I think, and just keep looking at various aspects of your business. You know, I have moments where I'm like, right, come on, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And if I feel the same way in 2 weeks' time, then you know that you're on the right track. We often can be overexcitable about things, and then, you know, we wake up in the morning and go, crikey, nice idea, but I don't think I'm ready for that yet. You sort of have to go on your gut instinct. So I think it's very important to listen to that. Instinct is so important. I mean, particularly if you've already got, I mean, I'm fortunate that I've got an existing business, so I know what works and what doesn't work. It's hard to go on instinct when you're starting out on something, because you've got to have confidence and you've got to have a positive attitude and a leap of faith. I've at least gone through those hurdles. Still need a leap of faith to take it to London and then take it internationally, which is what we want to do, and license the brand potentially. But you've got to have a gut instinct that it's right, and you've got to look at your projected business plan, your cash flow, and you've just got to make sure that you're not taking yourself too far outside of your comfort zone, but within a comfort zone which is exciting and manageable, and you know is right instinctively. So I think that's what I go on. but you know, year on year success, albeit tiny little pigeon steps. As long as you're not going in the opposite direction and making decisions due to panic, then I think you have to rely on your own, you know, forward thinking and your own gut instinct.
And I love this idea. I know balance is a huge issue for women, particularly women who are starting their own businesses or who are very, you know, who have a successful career. It's very, very tricky to balance all of these different aspects of life. And as you were touching upon, you've got 2 boys, they're getting older, you've got a husband who's very successful in his own right and travels a lot with his work. And you have your own incredibly successful business, which you have great ambitions for, understandably. How do you balance all of those different aspects of your life so successfully? Has it been a learning process?
Well, it has, and not without, goodness, it makes me sound as if I've got it all perfectly signed off and everything is tickety-boo. It's all through hit and miss, you know. There's not mornings, I mean, there are definitely mornings when, in fact, I spoke to Brett the other day and I said, well, Joshua stormed out, Zach stormed out, you obviously feel that I couldn't take you to the station because I was having to send this quick email. So everyone felt that really I was a huge disappointment that morning. So, I mean, there's always things that you learn from and feel bad about, but I think you've just got to learn from everything, you know. And I mean, I am quite a sensitive person, and I do feel quite intuitive to people's feelings. And of course, I spent quite a lot of that day just thinking, gosh, you know, that was a complete disaster. That can't happen again. Of course, it does happen again, but you sort of have to learn from it every single time. So, in answer to your question, I think being self-employed helps, because if I ultimately feel that I need to close the doors and just close for the day, then I can. I've got some wonderful staff now who can sort of step in, but again, that's happened over time. I think you've just got to be organised. I'm a great note taker. I know we've all got technical iPhones and iPads that you can put things into, but I do like to literally pull over on a motorway when I've got things in my head and I just have to write them down, because otherwise they possibly might go. If they're important, people would argue, well, they're not going to go if they're important. But actually, for me, it's a cleansing process and writing everything down and make sure everything's allocated, make sure that I feel that all the things to be done that day have been accomplished, but also have been delegated and made sure that somebody, if not me, because obviously at the end of the day, if you're in order to grow a business, you've got to let go. And that's a big thing and a big step. Going from the house, our studio in the home, to here was one step. Having 2 shops is going to be another step, which so many people do so successfully, but equally they will tell you about nightmares and things that went wrong, but you learn from them. So, you know, it's just about learning from your mistakes, you know, and we all make mistakes, and never be worried about the fact that, you know, mistakes have been made, whether it's in personal life or whether it's in a business life, because without mistakes, you don't learn anything.
Don't progress.
You don't progress. And sometimes I have my bride sitting in front of me going, oh, goodness me, I just want everything to be perfect. Well, of course, everyone wants everything to be perfect, but the funniest stories come from when just little things go wrong. Because otherwise, if you just, like, when you say to someone, oh, how was your day? And they go, well, it's fine. Well, didn't anything funny happen today? Well, actually, and that's what you want to hear about, actually, because it makes for a much more entertaining conversation.
And much more memorable.
It's much more memorable. And people like people to be, you know, vulnerable in a way. I mean, human and able to deal with things that happen and laugh about them and still be self-deprecating. So I think that's another lesson in life, is just to, you know, learn from your mistakes and not be afraid of making them.
And would you say that that was one of the most important things for you and building your own career and your own success, is not being afraid of making decisions and then learning from any mistakes that you do make off the back of those decisions?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think if you repeatedly make the same mistake, then obviously you need to ask yourself why, and not learning from it, and you know, but I think you've just, I mean, thankfully I was born a confident person, and I know that not everybody is, and I don't know how you teach people confidence. I think, you know, I've been fortunate, you know, I've had lovely parents and I've had a lovely education and loving people around me, and maybe that's what I'm trying to create around me as well. You know, I feel that was so important to my upbringing. So I don't think you can teach confidence, but I think you have somehow got to believe in yourself. And if, for instance, in my situation, people were talking about the accessories I was making and really sort of overly enthusing about them, you can't sort of think, well, they're not telling the truth. You know, you've got to believe, you've got to really listen to other people and trust other people. I mean, equally, they might tell you things that you don't want to hear, but having said that, it's all constructive criticism and it's all part of the journey, hearing positives and negatives. And you know, it's a recipe for success if you listen and if you choose to listen to what people have to say to you. Because I think if you only go on positives, then you're going to be setting yourself up for a fall because, you know, as you said earlier, you know, we're learning from mistakes. So yes, I would say that's the case.
And if you could share any advice or wisdom with women who are wanting to follow your footsteps into creating their own business, be it something similar to this or in another industry altogether, what would be maybe 3 of the things that you would say that have been crucial for you and your success to date to help them to implement that knowledge in their lives?
I think you've got to write down your objectives as to why you're wanting to do. Is it boredom? Is it financial? Is it lack of fulfilling your own ambitions in life, or having not found something that you've enjoyed doing? So I think really just write all those things down initially. Then I think it's about seeing how long you're interested in doing that thing for, because there's so many of us who get so excited about a new upholstery course, or so excited about learning Italian, I'm going to speak fluently by next year. If you've achieved that, then it's obviously something that you enjoyed, that you're passionate about, and you were finding inner contentment with. So I think it's self-fulfilling as to whether if you don't continue it, then you know that actually it's not something you really, really want to do. So I think, you know, the continual interest and application to achieve a goal that you write down and you continue to do sort of every 6 months or every year, and it's progressing and you're developing it. I think that's, I would say, the biggest thing, because fads and people see you and go, oh, I'm going to do that, I'm going to set up my own business. It's the hardest thing in the world to set up your own business. No matter what it is you think that is niche, you'll find that somebody else is doing it.
There are no new ideas.
No, there aren't. I mean, there obviously are, but on the whole, the first hurdle could be that, as I say, type in tiara into a search engine, 27,000. Well, arguably I could have gone, you know, I'm not going to do that. But I really believe that actually, are they all doing it right? Can I not make it really special? Is there not a niche within it? And so I think, you know, all those little setbacks, if you can ride through them, then I believe that it really is, therefore, you're onto something.
And commitment to the idea as well, because I think you're right. I think people will type in tiara, okay, millions of other people doing it, that's not for me. But if you're committed to the idea, you can always find a way to make it work, make it different, make it better.
Absolutely. And I think the other important thing is, because obviously anything that you're starting, if it's really starting from scratch, you set yourself a budget. Well, I know that years ago it was £1,000. I was going to just, because it really was a hobby. I mean, I had no idea where I was going to go with it. And £1,000 is what I had, and I was not going to spend any more than that. So I sort of, you know, divided that up into materials. I wasn't obviously factoring in my time at that stage, but, you know, and I think my £1,000 began to sort of make itself into something. I think I sort of set up a wedding, or attended a wedding show, and of course from that I made more than my £1,000. So anyway, it was a self-fulfilling, and I've never really gone back on that. I've never had to, thankfully in my industry, had to borrow. So I think that's something which I think is really important. I mean, I'm not a spender, but there's lots of people I know who are, and it's very easy to keep spending, but actually you're throwing good money after bad. So I think stay within an achievable and realistic budget for your setup of your business. That's really important too.
And what's the greatest lesson that you've ever learned, and who taught it to you?
Well, it's sort of unrelated to my business, but the most impactful piece of advice I would say is that I had a lady who was 76 years old in the back of my car one day, and she was very passionate individual as a person, sort of very full of expression, and you know, you just felt you wanted to listen to her. And I was obviously driving along, and she was in the back, and she was telling me about her 5 marriages that she had, and how she got it right on the last marriage. And she was so excited. And she said, listen, I live in Cornwall and my husband lives in Cyprus, and I see him 3 months of the year, Gillian. It's marvellous. I've now worked out exactly what works for me. And of course I was laughing, thinking, and she said, and also I've just trained to be a child psychologist. And I couldn't believe this. Here she was, 76 years old, with all this energy and vibrancy and this sort of drive to continue. And she said, the one thing I need to say to you is this: never retire, always reinvent yourself.
Lovely.
And I've always thought about that for years now. Always think about her in the back of my car with her final words saying that to me. And I think they're really amazing words of advice and words of wisdom. And I think I'll take them to wherever. As long as I live, I'll remember that. Because I think, you know, it's really important to, which is very cliche, but sort of, you know, reach for your dream and always strive for it. Because, you know, we're around for a long time, and I think it's very easy to give up on ourselves and think that's it. But I think we've always got to tap into our real inner desires and our inner capabilities and never believe that it's too late. So I think that was my greatest lesson.
I love that. I also, you know, you often hear women get very, very attached to a role in life, be it mother, wife, or the job that they have. And I think a lot of women find that when their children fly the nest or when they retire from their job, they lose a sense of self. And that idea of reinvention, so maybe you're no longer, you know, a dentist, but you can reinvent yourself into whatever it is that you want to become and then become it. I love that. That's a beautiful piece of advice. And do you think that you live your life by that piece of advice?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm always quite a proactive, you know, enthusiastic person anyway, but that sort of encapsulated my whole raison d'etre, I think. And I find myself saying to the children, you know, just reinvent yourself, reinvent an idea. Don't feel that, oh, everyone, like my son's 16 at the moment and babysitting, oh, everyone does babysitting. Well, yes, well, think about how you can reinvent babysitting. You know, offer to do their homework for them or help them with their homework or help them with their common entrance or help them. You know, don't just say that you need some babysitting. You know what I mean? Try and reinvent yourself, add value, try and be creative with it, you know. So it's all about just thinking outside the box and not just giving up at the first hurdle.
And not conforming to what everybody else is doing.
Absolutely.
And if you could go back in time, what would you say to your younger self?
It's very hard, isn't it? Because I do feel what I'm doing now is what I would say to myself when I was younger. In other words, I do feel that I really do tap into every opportunity. I suppose I would say and reaffirm is to walk through every door because you never know what's on the other side. Because without opening so many doors, forget business, anything, I would say I would never have known what was on the other side. And it might not be obviously what's on the other side. It might be something that wasn't apparent, but you stepped through and something else happened. So I think that's possibly what I would say, you know, reaffirm that to myself, because obviously I've been hesitant in things, and it's important to always step through that door.
Yeah, because you never know what's around it. What new opportunities. Beautiful. And what would you say have been the key turning points in your life?
I think, well, as I said earlier, getting married and having children, really, which sounds, again, you know, quite a predictable thing to say, but they're huge decisions that you make in your life. Certainly getting married for me was a huge decision.
And having something you thought you might not do when you were younger, was marriage?
No, it was the most important thing. It's the thing we always used to talk about as children, you know, at school around the refectory table, was when we were going to get married, who we were going to get married to, you know, how many children we're going to have, you know, all those sort of questions that, you know, children think about. Well, of course we did too. And so I sort of knew I would one day. I hoped I would. I hoped I wouldn't be too fussy, or I wouldn't be too, you know, I don't know, just somebody that somebody one day would want to marry. But that was a big decision for me. And I got married when I was 32, so actually I almost not left it too late, but I realised that actually I was enjoying my career at the time and enjoying partying and enjoying just having fun. And I think you've just got to make sure that you keep yourself on track. So anyway, eventually I did obviously meet my husband, but then having children was really important to me too, because you're responsible for others. And it sort of made me, well, it makes you grow up hugely, I think. And also, it does make you think, right, I have presumably met my partner in life. So suddenly someone is as interested in you as a person as you have been solely and probably, you know, selfishly. So I think suddenly you feel able to, as I said before, focus on your path and what are you about and what is it really that you want to do now. So I think those were surely the biggest decisions of my life, because so much more has happened since.
And it's almost like when you've ticked those boxes, you've got married, you've found your life partner, you've had children, now you can go back to focusing on you and what you need to do for your own happiness and your own sense of fulfillment and purpose in life.
But with other people to think about as well, which I think is lovely. It's not just about you anymore, although now you have to think about how you can add to your family unit and make everyone happy and contained, as well as achieve your own personal goals with the family, you know, to consider now. So you just have to start thinking differently, I think.
And you seem a very, very driven and motivated woman. You set these goals and then you go about and make them happen, which is hugely inspirational. Your story, you know, from starting up your own, you know, business to having this wonderful bespoke jewellery brand is incredibly inspiring. How do you motivate yourself every day?
I think you know what, I think it goes back to being at school and being incredibly feisty. I must have been really infuriating for my parents. I had a real strong head on my shoulders, to the point where I was fortunate enough to have private education, but I decided that I was not going to have my father paying for my education any longer than 16, so I left school. And he so desperately wanted me to do A-levels and further education, but I just thought, I need to get out there, I want to go and earn my own money, I want to be independent. And I wasn't particularly interested in school, so I really felt that I needed to move on. And ever since then, I think I've always felt that I needed to prove myself. And that's literally what it's about. Even now to this day, I always think, you know, because there's still people who say, oh, you see, you didn't go to university. And I still think, you know, it's still a thing. It's still something that people really consider. But so many entrepreneurs, or I'm not saying I'm an entrepreneur, but so many people in business have left school at 16. They've been hungry to go out and make a difference. And so I would say, yes, exactly that. I'm just so driven to not prove anyone else wrong, but prove to myself that I made the right decisions.
So it's not a regret for you now that you decided to make that decision when you were 16?
Absolutely not. I think times are different now, so anyone, you know, I wouldn't necessarily give the same advice to my children. And I think we are in a different age where we do need to, you know, the technical age where I think education and qualifications are important. But for me then, and the decision I made, I felt that it was important for me to go out and make a difference. So I'm still hungry to do that, and I really don't like failing. It doesn't mean I'm a failure, is it? It's always an
opportunity to learn.
But that's what I mean, and I do think there's no reason to fail. Failing is giving up. Yeah. You can always get to a solution to any problem if you can endure the time and the energy and persevere. It's so easy, isn't it, just to go, oh, do you know, first of all, I'm not that interested, or I can't be bothered. Yeah. You know, whereas I really will find the answer to my problem. Yeah. And so I think that is where part of my ambition and drive comes from. It's not financial at all. I mean, obviously, you know, money is always useful, but that's not my absolute raison d'etre. It's more important for me to see a project through and it be successful in just the fact that the box is ticked. And that was what we set out to do, and we've done it. There's always more you can do, but let's go on to the next step. So it's all about those little steps and making sure that each one, the foundations need to be in place, and then you go slowly and not run. I think you've got to literally sort of take each step as it comes. And I do put that down to the moment in time now for me. It's all been very organic and slow, but, you know, considered.
And do you have any regrets?
I really don't.
That's amazing.
I really don't. And I mean, you know, obviously, you know, there's things in our life, little things, personal things, but again, you learn from them. And I think so long as you don't repeat that, as I said earlier, I think that's really important for me. That's a really important lesson. You don't regret. And my husband actually is brilliant like that, because I often say, oh, you know, do you wish you'd done this? He always says, no, absolutely not, because if I'd have done that, then my path now would be different. So you always just have to presume and be confident about the decisions you make. And they might not have been the right ones, but you just make the most of what you've got and go forward with it. So I think that's really important.
And what are the 3 most important things for you to enable you to live your best life? Now, maybe at this stage in your career, what are the 3 things that you would say are the most important for you?
Well, literal things, or sort of, you know, I mean, I could say that health is obviously so important. I mean, I couldn't do anything and I couldn't be confident if I didn't have my health. So, you know, I think diet and sleep and exercise are really, really key in my life. And sometimes it's really hard to fit those in. Yeah. And some days I don't, and I probably feel grumpier for it. Yeah. And other people possibly feel grumpier for it because of me as well. So I think they're really important. So, So yes, so that would definitely be important for what else? I think, you know, well, it's, again, I feel that I've been blessed in a positive attitude, but it's being able to sort of maximise on everything that happens and just see the benefit and see the positive, to take every opportunity that comes your way. always be self-deprecating and laugh, because, you know, things are funny, aren't they? They're not that bad. Everything can be laughed at. And to take yourself too seriously is possibly well, that would be a regret, and I certainly don't do that. I'm my own worst, you know, critic. So yes, I think that's probably.
So to live your best life, you would say health, fitness, diet, sleep. So looking after
the core.
Looking after your core, having a positive attitude, which is also really key, and being self-deprecating and laughing and...
Self-deprecating, absolutely. I think that's so important, because sometimes I get myself, you know, all caught up and tangled up in my own goal. I come in here and I literally every morning I'm just like, right, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And people who work for me going, yeah, right, I don't think we'll do all of that today. And we possibly won't, but it's all my energy coming out, and, you know, and it gets everyone caught up in it. And it's, you know, and it's just about setting your goals out and trying to work, just trying to be happy that you'll get a few of them done, you know. It's just that positive thinking, it's just that energy. But as I said, that doesn't come without really treating your body like a temple and trying to look after yourself, because everything else resonates from that.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, having a business meeting where you're feeling awful, you're not going to be as successful as if you'd felt great. So it's about, I think that's really important, it's about sort of looking after the real core, and then everything else seems to come from it. So how to live your best life, that's got to be the answer.
And that leads us really nicely into my final question for today, which is, as you know, all about tools, tips and strategies. That's what the brand is about. It's about helping women to implement the knowledge practically in their own lives. And so if I was to say to you, let's set our audience today an exercise off the back of the amazing experiences and success that you have managed to create for yourself in your own life, what do you think that might be? Definitely goals have got to be a part of it, because I've really sensed that, you know, you're a big goal setter, and then you work to make that goal happen, even if it's hugely unconventionally thinking outside the box. So maybe it could be something around goal setting and how you set goals for yourself.
I think my exercise would be to get people to write down 3 things, 5 things, 10 things that they have always wanted to do. And they can be very unrealistic, literally. And then after that, think about what would they have to do within their lives to make that happen. In other words, would they need to move to another country? In other words, is it completely unviable in the situation they're in at the moment? Or is it something that's actually achievable? And then write down a budget that you're happy to spend on achieving any one of those 10 things. And those 10 things will suddenly come down to 2 things.
When money's involved.
Well, when money's involved, or when, you know, depending on it, because I mean, I'd love people to be completely open with their, you know, their things that they'd like to do. So it could be something complete, like I'd like to be a vet, and I'd like to, you know, change London Zoo and make it my, well, okay, and that person's 64. So, I mean, you know, you've got to think, well, is that going to be an achievable thing? But it's really out there, because also what that does, if you're going to then sit down and brainstorm with your friends, that thing about opening doors, just writing down the whole animal thing and the sort of, you know, sort of care for animals in the society, and how that can open up other areas where someone might say, well, actually, you know, I know someone who's looking after a volunteer at the moment in something, you know, it's all about discussing these things. So what you set down as your ideas of something that you'd love to do in your life can soon be either reduced to 2 that are actually achievable, or they can be brainstormed amongst friends to actually come out with something that you really can set a process forward as to how can you achieve that, and give yourself a time frame as well. Because again, if you've gone off that by 5 o'clock that afternoon, then it wasn't really something you really wanted to do. Yeah. So I think that's really important. And a lot of people think they need to do something because everyone else around them is. And actually, you know, there's nothing wrong with just being content and being happy and nurturing a family and being a homemaker. I mean, so many of my friends just love having an amazing meal bubbling in the oven, having the ironing done, you know, really there for other people. I mean, that in itself is an amazing achievement. So I think it's all about just writing everything down, writing a budget down, and writing out the steps within which you would need to do it within whether it's viable within what you're doing in your life, and whether in fact it's going to be something that's actually practical or completely pie in the sky. So
and
I
listening
think
to your gut, like you were bringing that in before, and I think that's really important.
into your instinct. That's
Into your
right.
instinct. So
Yes.
you may write all of these things down and instinctively think, okay, that would be nice, but actually, I don't think that's right for me. That's a beautiful idea, but probably not gonna work for me. And maybe that is because it's too pie in the sky, or maybe because it just doesn't resonate with you in some way. And that's really interesting what you were saying about, being a homemaker, and people maybe think, oh, that's not ambitious enough. But if that's your gut instinct, that's what you want to do, reinterpret that, as you were saying before, make that the best life for you.
Make it the best life for you, exactly. Make it different in some way. Give people, there's one thing that I sometimes feel slightly, how you have not an upset in your, but you feel that something's not quite right, is if I walk into my home at the end of the day and actually all the ironing's on the table and I haven't unloaded the dishwasher, and I hate that, and it makes me feel, and I like everything organised in my house, but of course, the reality is not everything is possible to be perfect. So I'd love to be doing those things as well, and how lovely to have a home where your family come home and everything is just as it should be. And that's such an amazing thing that you can give your family, because it's our home and we all like to come back after a day of studying or a day of working. And sometimes that's not quite, as it should be in my house, because I've been out as well. So, I think being a homemaker is absolutely fantastic. And I think we sometimes walk around with ideas in our heads, and it only takes an exercise of writing things down and realising, either putting closure on something that is absolutely not that it's not achievable, but not achievable for you as a person at your time of life, or, within the realms of possibility of how you live your life at the moment. So I think writing things down and putting closure to something, or giving something the legs to run with, because actually, maybe not to this goal, but let's start here and let's see if it's possible. And you obviously love it, so why not? And I think, my husband initially said to me, you're never going to make a business making tiaras. And I hate that word tiaras. It's not one I use at all now. But I'll never forget him saying that. And let me tell you, if that wasn't red rag to a bull, I thought, actually, I am. Thank you very much. And sometimes that's a good thing. And I mean, that was a criticism, but actually it was also a fueling. Was I going to do it, or was I going to go, actually, you're right, I'm not going to, am I?
But your instinct was telling you,
actually I am.
Do this.
I am going to, thank you very much. And sometimes we need that in order to sort of perpetuate ourselves onto the next step. So I think writing things down and really going on your gut instinct is what's realistic and what isn't. Because when you see it written down somehow, it does make it clearer.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. I will put that down into an exercise for the audience, and we will make sure that they do that and take that wisdom
It
from
is interesting.
you.
It's quite a good game as well.
Yeah, really interesting. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed coming to your beautiful shop here in Teddington and learning more about you and what success means to you. So thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Success means to me having a happy family unit, inner contentment, and fulfilling your goals.